so glad you asked this actually because this was a big focus of my work at the Partnership on AI. So I worked in the AI Labor and Economy program, and I collaborated deeply with Katja Klinova, who now works at the UN. And we were really interested in this question about AI's impact on labor. And in particular here, I think that there are kind of three buckets of change that people are concerned about or are talking about. So, one, as you mentioned, is the availability of jobs, right? Will there be work to go around, right? Is there going to be work to do? Two is this question of the quality of work, right? Will work be transformed in a way that is more enjoyable or less enjoyable? And then I think three, there's this question about like, who does the work serve, right? Like, how does the application of this technology reshape the power structures in our economy? And so, to the first question, I actually am pretty concerned. And this is something that Katya actually was talking about a long time ago, even just with things like um, some of the like automated kiosks that you might see at like a local restaurant or a grocery store where people are doing kind of a self-checkout experience. Now, I'll recognize, and there's actually a great piece called The Automation Charade, which is kind of a critical look at, is this actually technology doing the work, or are we just invisibilizing the work? Like when I use the self-checkout at the grocery store, yes, you can think of that as a technological innovation, or you can think of it as me doing the unpaid labor of a grocery cashier, right? And so there can sometimes just be a shift in the work and which work gets compensated. There can also be real spaces where work is entirely transformed or significantly reduced. We see this certainly across a lot of conversations around kind of self-support and call centers or translation work as a space or copywriting. These are fields where some of these automations are really disrupting the availability of jobs. And then finally, there's this question about like, well, who benefits? How does that shape the kind of economic system that we're in? And fundamentally, AI is a capital expenditure, right? It is a space where the kind of the not to get to Marxist here or whatever, but like the means of production are these computational systems, and the more that we shift from labor, and especially where our tax codes incentivize shifts from labor to capital, we see that the owners or those who control those technological systems, they're ultimately the ones who benefit from these changes. So even if the tech isn't that good or appropriate for the particular job to be done, there people might employ these tools anyway because they just cost less to deploy than human workers. And so I think when we have conversations about technological unemployment or AI's impact on labor, we need to keep our eyes focused there, right? Really center on like, this is not something that just happens. This is something that people are actively trying to facilitate. And who is actively trying to facilitate it? So we see this even OpenAI, one of their measures of general intelligence, of this kind of AI that they're trying to build, is how much work they can displace, basically. That's how they measure whether or not they are achieving their general intelligence goals. And I would say that's a crappy goal, right? Like, there's so much work to be done in the world. I'm not ever worried about us running out of things that need doing. But I am worried about the people who decide which work gets to be done, being a smaller and smaller number of people, and people who maybe don't answer to the public, aren't publicly governed. And so I am concerned actually quite a bit about AI's impact on labor, but I think that my concerns lead me to kind of flip the script and say, well, what do we want AI to be in our lives? Like the example with artists, like the example that we're doing in the space of food security, we can choose what we build these systems to do. They're, at least for now, they're not building themselves. And so it's important that we actually decide what we want that relationship to be. And like I mentioned in the MIT workshop I participated in, the reality is a lot of these systems right now are being built to take things off our plate. And there is a time and a place for that work, for sure. Absolutely. And that may not be what we actually want these tools to be. So, an example that I often give is the kind of spectrum from a lever to a microscope. A lever is one form of technology, and a microscope is one form of technology. A lever is a powerful tool, right? With a lever long enough, you can lift the world, right? We can do so many things. A lever is a force multiplier. It basically allows one person to do what would have taken 10 or 100 people to do before. That's a powerful capability. But it's also a labor displacing capability, right? Like fundamentally, it only takes one person to do what would have taken 10 or 100 people to do before. On the other end of the spectrum, I would say is more like a microscope. You could throw 10 or 100 or 1,000 people at the problem of germ theory, but until you have the lens, there are things you cannot do. There are things you cannot understand about the world. And so I think that our current discussion about AI and labor is very focused on this lever problem. And the way that people are measuring success in the AI innovation space is like, how can we build bigger and better levers? There is a time and a place. We do need those tools. But I think that not enough attention is focused on what I would describe as capability extension, things like the microscope that actually go beyond what we can do today, but allow us to do things that humans, no matter how many of them you had, just couldn't do before. And I'd love for us to focus more on that end of the spectrum. And I think that AI absolutely can play a role in that type of innovation. But I think that we have to decide that that's what we want.